Oh baby, everybody, and we are back. Welcome back to Words with Wayman. I am your host, as always, Matt Wayman. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to hop right into it. Coming back, Sweet and Spicy Part 2, St. Louis wrestler, touring around the country. Danny Adams is stopping in to talk with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's good to be back, Matt.
First question right out the gate. Have you ever been injured doing this? It seems like a thing that might cause some injuries. It's pretty...
I have been actually extremely fortunate to not have too much bad happen to me. The worst thing that ever happened was I got I was basically bent in half in a certain degree that is a chiropractor wouldn't exactly approve of. So I got like a lower back, like a pretty bad sprain. And honestly, like after it happened, I it's one of those things like the adrenaline's going so much like while you're in the ring that like you usually anytime you're hurt, unless you're like physically can't move, you can pretty much finish what you're doing out there.
Of course.
So yeah, like I was like, oh, that my back kind of hurts.
And then the next
kinda
day,
sucks. And then once everything calms down, you go to sleep, and the next day, and I'm like, oh, I can't
because it's such a big part of it, the physicality, and I mean, you're going to take those blows all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because sometimes especially at a certain point where you kind of have to let your guard down and let yourself get hit in the head just because that's what we do. I mean, you got to kind of have to toughen up, and it's so unnatural to especially that's one thing, like when you're learning to wrestle, is like you learn how to just let go and fall and hit the mat, with a flat back, or if someone's coming in to
kind of how to take the hits a little bit.
Someone's coming in with a big old, the big boot to the face, like you're taking a boot to the face. I mean, there's really no two ways about it, even though it's coming, and that almost makes you. I feel like that almost makes it even more tough to do because it's easy. It's kind of easy to put your guard up and try to block it, but to just sit and like, okay, here we go.
Because it would look fake.
Yeah, exactly. So it's tough to do.
Do you see a lot of guys resorting to like steroids and painkillers and stuff just to cope with it, or is that
it's not as much as it used to be?
Yeah.
I mean, I think. I mean, to be honest, like the biggest drug you see is just like weed. And
cool,
like,
that's awesome.
That's not
I
like,
love that.
Especially nowadays. Like that's.
I need to hang out with some more wrestlers.
Yeah, well, you'll see a ton of it. But I think that obviously a more healthy way to deal with pain.
Absolutely,
if you need it's better than alcohol and it's better than painkillers. So
of course,
I don't see anything wrong with that.
That's so cool. That's great. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, it's just a scene that I'm not involved with. I mean, like comedy is pretty much a bunch of booze hounds. And everybody gets high too, but that's cool that weed's still there. Do you guys make your own outfits, or where do you buy these outfits that you?
Usually, you just kind of got to get the hookup with someone who knows what they're doing.
Nice,
because it's kind of you need something that you can move in, but then also looks flashy, or
it's awesome.
It's kind of hard to find someone who knows exactly how to make like wrestling gear. So
is it like a DIY? Is it like some chick in every scene that some people know?
Pretty much, just kind of like. You just like I got the name of a woman up in Canada for my trainer because he was originally from Canada, and I've just gone to her for the past 3 years because I'm like, she's my person, she's got my measurements. I just send her a design and she makes it, and
that's pretty awesome.
And that's cool. Also, it's if she charges me in Canadian, I pay in American, so I make
save a little cash money on the exchange rate. What's your routine for like getting ready for when you go out there? Do you have something that you go through like before every match, or do you just kind of hang out?
You're mostly just hanging out. I mean, like I love being like first or second on a card because you're like you get to the venue. You figure out what you want to do, and then you go do it.
Yeah.
The worst thing is being like 7 or 8, and you're just sitting there waiting the whole time. Like,
for a couple hours.
I just want to get this over with. Like, it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be like a huge adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
But the anticipation just sucks so bad.
How long do matches last normally? Do they like give you a light when you're like supposed to wrap it up, or?
It depends. Like, I mean, sometimes they'll just say, just go out there and do as much as you want and go as long as you want. Sometimes people are like, you got to be done in 10 minutes. So, it just depends who the promoter is that you're wrestling for.
Cool.
And what they want.
How much time they have to fill or whatever.
Certainly.
Let's see. Did that. We talked about it a little bit. Is there like a set steps that you can go from to get to like amateur to pro, or is it pretty much just like hit the amateur scene hard, do it really well, and just hope you kind of get seen by somebody, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly about putting yourself in a position to where if somebody did see you, they would be like, okay, this is a
He's
guy.
got what it takes.
That comes down to making sure your body looks good. It comes down to making sure that you look like you know what you're doing in a ring, and most of that just comes down to confidence. Like if you're you have a good look to you, a good build, and you look confident, I think that's the best thing that anyone who's like a talent scout or anything is looking for. And a lot of times you just kind of have to build up it's all very grassroots. Like you kind of have to, you start as a nobody, and if you just got to kind of build up that fan base by getting in a car and traveling to Indiana. And I've got some Indiana fans, and then you go to Chicago, and now you got some Chicago fans, and it's just you just got to keep expanding your reach pretty much, which it can be pretty hard to do. Especially hard to go into like a state you've never been to. Nobody has any idea who you are, and you have to make them either love or hate you in the span of like 8 to 10 minutes. It can be pretty difficult.
So it is similar to comedy.
Absolutely.
What's your goal in wrestling?
That's a hard question to answer because there's actually a lot of different paths you can take. I mean, a lot of people, their goal is to go to the WWE. Yeah. But that's not for everybody. I mean, it's an extremely, extremely demanding job to be there. So maybe some people just want to, make their living just on the independent scene, which can be done. Or you maybe want to go to Japan or Europe or Mexico. I mean, there's so many different parts of the world that appreciate wrestling like in different ways. Yeah. Like in Japan, it's revered like as an actual sport.
Awesome.
So that's always was kind of a goal of mine to go to Japan because it's like. It's the closest I'm ever going to be to feeling like a legitimate professional athlete where people are like hold you in this very high esteem.
That's pretty awesome.
So I would say that's probably my biggest goal is to get over there at some point, and also just to make sure that I'm always having fun with wrestling. Yeah. There are times where I've seen a lot of guys who kind of they're making a living at it, but because it's become such a job, it's just it sucks the fun out of all of it.
So they're making all of their money off doing wrestling?
Yeah. But sometimes the pressure involved with that can just it just takes all the fun out of it. And at a certain point, like if wrestling's not fun, I just don't think I'd be involved with it.
That's probably for the best.
I think comedy is probably the same way. Where
it's absolutely you're 100% on.
If you're like a touring comedian and you're making all this money at it, it's cool. It's really cool because that's your goal. But at the same time, does that take some of the fun out of it?
So much pressure,
So much pressure to perform and to keep getting, it's very much a grind, especially when you're hitting the road as much as you can.
You nailed it right on the head. Yeah, everybody I think glorifies the grind, and I'm sure it's the same in wrestling where everybody's like, man, just to be on the road and stuff, and it's like that's fun for like a week or a week and a half, and then after that it's just too much. It's just not fun anymore. Sleeping on people's floors and all that stuff. So I'm sure then you work a day job too. To pay the bills?
Yeah, I work for Build-A-Bear Workshop here in St. Louis, doing tech support for the stores.
Nice.
It's a really cool company to work for, just because I'm pretty big on helping out kids, and I like performing in front of kids, and so obviously Build-A-Bear is a huge part of any childhood experience. So I dig that, and I dig that corporate culture. It's just kind of a big thing for me.
That's really cool. This is jumping around a little bit back to it, but is it always the promoter that tells you who wins and who loses the match, kind of?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, you've got essentially someone just who's writing the show,
Yeah.
And he has his ideas of who wins and who loses, and then this leads into whatever his next show is. And maybe he won't even have the money to run a next show, but a lot of these promoters, I mean, for the most part, think they're Vince McMahon, and they have taken their stuff very seriously, even though you're wrestling in front of 20 people, in the central Missouri somewhere. But the guy who's running that show, for the most part, they're taking it pretty seriously, and they like to exercise as much control as they can, and it can be a little bit of a power trip for some people.
Oh, I'm sure they love it.
I mean, everyone likes to feel important.
Yeah.
So.
Do you guys all like hang out as like groups and stuff? Like all the wrestlers, for the most part, pretty much get along?
Yeah, I think there very rarely do you see two people who.
It seems like it's so like small. It's like pretty tight knit. I would think.
Yeah, and especially for a lot of like wrestling fans, a lot of us kind of grew up not having a ton of other friends that were big wrestling fans, at least at the level that we were. So it's like you get to this point where like, oh, there's this whole group of people who know all the stuff about wrestling that I do, and it's like you didn't have that as a kid, so it can be very unifying, and it's very much a brotherhood because like it's almost like what you were searching for me, like the first 21 years of my life.
Cool.
And all of a sudden here I am, and like there's 100 people in a room, and they're all talking about wrestling, and I'm like,
Nice.
I've never had this before. I was always I had one friend named Luke, and he was my wrestling friend, and that was it. And now it's like expanded so far beyond that to where it's not like this little niche, little nerdy thing that I'm into. It's like it's normal. Like it's you're now in the majority instead of being this little.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's always like a guy that takes it too competitive or something, and he's the guy that wants to make it as a pro and shit.
Oh, certainly. I mean, there's the egos certainly abound.
Because you have to. It seems like you have to have a big ego to do it, or like at least somewhat of an ego.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
in like a good way.
There's a certain level of insanity that you have to have because it's like
force some delusion.
Like I'm saying before, like you have to, you're letting someone slam you on the mat, and you're letting someone kick you in the mouth, and it's like there's a certain level of insanity that you have to allow that to happen, and it just all comes from your ego and I don't know, whatever other kind of mental illness that each of us individually has.
Yeah. So you're based out of St. Louis. Is there a city that's like, because in comedy it's like New York or L.A. or something. Is St. Louis a good city to be based out of for wrestling? Or
St. Louis is great. I mean, we actually have a really good scene. Most of the good wrestling is going to come from just over the river on the Illinois side.
Cool.
Just because the Missouri side, there's a athletic commission that governs all of the wrestling to where people that run shows need a permit, and all the wrestlers need a certain license and everything. But on the Illinois side, there's no restrictions. So very much there's a very good scene, but you just kind of have to go over the river to see most of the really good stuff.
Bunch of buzzkills over here in Missouri.
Absolutely, people have been fighting it for years. It's I don't know. It's just something that couldn't really explain why this commission exists or why they're trying to put their hands on something that because they govern it like it's mixed martial arts or boxing, but it's a completely separate entity than those type of things. It's entertainment. It's no different.
Yeah,
than
it should be this fun
stand-up
thing.
comedy. It's no different than music. But it's just something we deal with, and we just take our talents.
I guess there's
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I guess the only thing I would liken it to right there would be like boxing because it is this physical thing. So, but I'm sure they got their fingers in the till a little bit trying to get some money out of the whole thing too.
Oh, certainly. But it's and it's sad because St. Louis has such a rich history of wrestling at the Chase, which was just, one of the biggest wrestling programs back in the 70s and 80s, and to kind of see that kind of go by the wayside is sad, and it's all just because of bureaucratic red tape for the most part. But it's just something we deal with, and again, like we'll take our stuff over to Sauget, Illinois, and just wrestle. I wrestled at Pops last Friday.
Nice, that's awesome.
We'll wrestle in Alton,
How many times
Illinois.
do you get up? You usually do once a week or like once every 2 weeks?
I'm usually once or twice a week, just because I work a Monday through Friday.
That's
9
pretty
to 5,
good though.
So,
I mean,
Fridays can tend to be hard to travel, but no, I mean for the most part, I'm Saturday, Sunday. I'm usually somewhere, whether it's in town or I'm traveling. So it's certainly you'll always find a show somewhere. If you have to hop in a car and drive 8 hours, or there might be one 30 minutes away.
Nice.
But there's always, if you want it bad enough, there's somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Any weekend.
That's pretty awesome. That's really nice that at least there's options for it. I always ask this question on every podcast. 5 years from now, best case scenario, what would your life look like? Like if everything went just how you wanted it to.
If everything went perfectly, I'd be making a living at wrestling. I'd have wrestled in Japan, or maybe consistently wrestling in Japan.
Yeah.
And wrestling's just still fun, and I'm able to do what I love. But if that means I still got to have a day job, I think that's okay too.
Definitely.
I think that's all part of the grind too. I don't think that it necessarily you have to be homeless to make it in any kind of entertainment industry. It just means you have to work that much harder to maybe have less free time. And
I love how you don't put like so much pressure. Like I feel like a lot of people are like, it's this or nothing else. I don't feel like it should be that either.
It's very much a journey. Like it's gotta take you somewhere. You can't just have like a one-track mind. Like I have to this is my goal. Because if you might have opportunities come up, and if you have that one-track mind, you might turn those opportunities down when
Yeah.
they could be actually really good for you. So it's just kind of one of those things where there's a lot of luck involved, and if you're
Yeah.
lucky enough to get an opportunity to make some good money, then you got to take it. Otherwise, you might get left behind if you're too set on that one.
Because that's the
place.
thing with the wrestling career. I mean, at some point you're going to age out, right? I mean,
Yeah,
at some point, like the body's just going to be like, no.
The shelf life's pretty short.
Yeah.
I mean, if most guys start when they're 18, 19, 20, and they're done by their time they're 40, and
Yeah.
that's even kind of pushing it. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't make your money in that amount of time, then you're kind of out of luck after your body kind of breaks down. So that's kind of the harsh reality of it. And,
Yeah, enjoy it while it lasts.
I see it all the time. Guys that are kind of past their prime, and it's just
Trying to relive that dream, kinda.
sad. But I mean, if again, like if it just has, if they had their fun, if they had their glory days,
Yeah.
then I don't think there's anyone's gonna have any regrets.
And what's the worst case scenario? They didn't do it, and then they're just like normal people that didn't have anything,
Yeah, I mean, that's how I always felt. Is like, I don't want to be, 60, 70 years old and going, oh man,
I should have wrestled.
I should have wrestled.
Yeah.
And now I at least, even if I retired tomorrow,
Yeah.
I won't have that
At least you did
on
it.
my mind. So
That's
the
the
coolest
thing.
part.
I feel like everybody goes throughout their life, and then looking back at the regrets, like I should have done this, but you don't. You'll never have that.
No.
That's awesome. Just before we get out of here, and if anybody out here is a wrestling promoter from Japan, hit us up so we can get you over there. One more time, do you just want to give your web presence so people can support you on that?
Yeah, social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Danny Adams 93. Just shoot me some messages, post on my page. I'm always glad to talk to fans, whether it's about wrestling or about anything else.
Were you born in 93? Is that what I see?
Indeed.
93, baby. That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming out and talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Cool, guys. You guys know where to find us. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you all soon.
Don't let me down as heavy fiddles up and down this town. Just let me in. I'll set fire to the soul of sin.